Okay, the first thing we're going to do is sew our pull tabs together, and to turn them right side out, I use this little crochet. I think I got this at Michael's if I remember right, but anyway, you can find these just about any place you can get sewing supplies. And then I sand down the edge, the end here where it's not sharp. You can also use a paintbrush, just anything you can get inside the tube to push it right side out. So anyway, if you don't have any of those, pencil, the eraser end of a pencil will work, any of that will work. So let's get the sewing these together. I don't iron these in half. The reason I don't is it makes it harder to turn it back right side out once you've sewed your seam up. So just fold it over, and I don't even do a finger press on it either. So I don't want anything that really makes it tough to get the thing turned right side out. Okay, I'm doing, let's see here, just using the width of this presser foot for my seam, and it's probably about 1/8 of an inch roughly, so you don't need a very large seam on this. Just all we're trying to do is tack the side together on it. So got my stitch length set at 2.5, just normal stitch length, and I'm going to start a little bit beyond this and back stitch first. So we go back. So you want to get it all the way to the end. And I can already tell that my fabric's walked a little bit away from my presser foot, so I'm going to move it over a little bit. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. You want to keep it fairly even, so your pull tab will be even in the end. Okay, I'm going to the end. I'm going to back tack a couple of times. I'm going to turn it. Let me go one more stitch forward. I'm going to sew a seam down the end here. This will help me turn it when I need to turn it back right side out. Go ahead and shorten my stitch length here down to just a little over 1, so I can go all the way to the end. Back tack. Okay, there's our first tube. I'm going to do the same thing on the second one. Okay, all the way to the end. One more stitch. Turn it. Sew it right down the edge there. I missed my stitch on the end there, so let me tack that down. Came out from under the presser foot. You want to make sure you get all the way through that, because once you turn it right side out, if you don't, your little sticker there on the end of it may go through the end of it. Okay, cut my thread off. We're going to turn this one right side out. So what I do is I just stick the skewer, get this thread cut too. Stick the skewer against my body, this end, and then I put the edge that's sewed up. Kind of helps to get it started first, so let me do that. Started, and let me get this one started. And this is why I don't press the edge of them, because it's hard enough to get these things started because they're so small. So I'll just get a little bit going on the inside. Take my crochet hook, stick it in the fold in there. My stitch came out. I sewed a little bit too close to the edge, so let me come back in a little bit closer here. So don't go too close to the edge or you'll run into what I just came into, and the stitch came out of it. And I need to do that on this one too. So stay probably about the same distance away from the edge as you did on the other one. Yeah, my thread came out. Okay, hardest part of this is just getting it started, but once you start pulling it over, it should slide right through and out like that. So I just use the end here to kind of poke that seam out down there. You want to sew these inseams up a little bit higher than I did. It makes it a little bit easier. So I'd go about, you can even go up to 1/4 inch on the end. It makes it a little bit easier to turn it in. I've just gotten used to doing this when it's small, and the seam came out of that one, so I'm going to re-sew it. Get my thread pulled out. So if you get too far to the edge, it makes it tougher on the seam. Again, sew a very short stitch length here. I've got a stitch length of about 1 set up. That keeps it nice and small so that when you put your point in there, it won't go through it. Okay. A little bit better seam there. Get rid of all my threads. Pull it apart and get it started again. And again, the hardest part is just getting it started. Once it gets started, it will roll right over. So. Poke the corner out again. Okay. Now you can take it over and press it to where the seam is at the edge, and then press it with it folded over. And you have an option then. You can come back and you can top stitch it down the edge around it. So you can start here, come up, come all the way over and down if you want to keep it nice and flat. Or you can just simply baste it closed down here on the end. That's the minimum that we will do. So let me get over and get it pressed, and I'll show you, just how to baste the end down on this one. And I think I'm just going to leave these open like this, so you can reach in with your finger and grab it like that if you need to. So it's your option. Sometimes I go ahead and I stitch this down all the way around, and other times I don't. But the minimum we want to do is baste the edge. So let me get these pressed, and I'll show you how to baste the edge of it. Okay, I've pressed these flat, and I don't really press the edge of it down. But what we're going to do is on our fold open end down here, we're going to go ahead and do a little basting stitch to keep these nice and even for when we baste them onto the bag. So we'll baste this first. I say baste, you can sew it with a regular stitch length of 2 to 2.5 or so. Thing is really cutting the thread short for some reason. Okay, make sure I've got my two ends lined up. I want to make sure my edges are lined up. And I'm basically using about 1/8 of an inch down here just to get this tied together at the end. Okay, got that end tied together, and we'll do the other end. Double check, make sure the edges are lined up, because that's the whole point of this, keeping everything lined up nicely. Kind of squeezing this. I've seen it's pulled the bottom a little bit more than the top, so I'm going to encourage it to feed the top a little bit better. Double check, make sure everything lays nice and flat. Yeah, and I'm seeing this stitch, you can see kind of what it did. I'm going to loosen the tension on the presser foot. I'm going to cut it and re-sew it. That's why I cut them a little bit long. It gives you a little bit more play. Okay, since I cut this one off, I want to make note of that when I put it in the bag for the other one. So I'm going to sew this seam fairly close to the edge on this one. and hopefully you'll be able to adjust the pressure on your presser foot, because it was pressing too hard and separating the tab. If you don't, just try to hold it, keep it nice and tight, or use some sort of a hand basting stitch to keep it together nicely. You should be able to use your sewing machine. Okay, that's much better. Alright, we've got those ready to go. So what we will do is we will actually baste these on the zipper part of the bag when it comes time to start assembling the bag. And again, I've got a note. I've got one that's shorter than the other one here. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and sew this one at the same point and then cut it off. That way I'm not ending up with two tabs that are two different lengths. So I'm just going to line them up. Okay, now I'm going to cut these the same length. That way I won't get into a situation to where I've got one longer than the other one. So, alright, let me take care of that real quick, and then we're going to get on to assembling our bag now.